Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of South Bay Sports Radio. On this episode, I'm joined by North Torrance girls basketball coach Lauren Kamiyama. Lauren talks about playing 3 sports in high school, what went into her decision to attend Chapman University, her start in coaching, North making the CIF finals in 2015 and 2025, and more. Let's tune in to hear more about Lauren's basketball story. Lauren, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Of course. All right, take me back. How did you fall in love with basketball?
I think I was just born into it, to be honest. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. Both of my parents grew up playing basketball and in the basketball community. Um, both athletic directors. So, I mean, as a kid, you kind of just get dragged from place to place to place. Both of my older brothers played basketball. And so I think coming from 2 parents who coach basketball, who are very involved in the basketball community, and then both my brothers playing basketball, I kind of just was around the game since I was born. So,
You play 3 sports at Cerritos High School. How would you describe your prep career as a student athlete?
um, so my 8th grade year going into high school, I had played all 3 sports. Basketball and soccer being in the same season. So the big question was like, which one did I want to choose? Which one did I like more? I liked them both equally. Um, so summer I participated in both basketball and soccer. Kind of talked to the coaches, see what they thought about just doing both because I truly like doing both. I had 2 very, very understanding coaches that would fortunately allow me to play both. As a freshman, um, there was some controversy just because obviously I'm going to 2 different practices. I'm not at every minute of every practice. I would go like an hour and a half of soccer and then an hour and a half of basketball. It just worked out. Um, Games were at opposite sites, so my parents would soccer games were early, just like they are now. My parents would take me immediately after we shook hands and drive me to the basketball game, which was on the road. So if soccer was at home, basketball was on the road. Um, I would quickly like eat a snack in the car before my second game and then go and play in the game. Um, I liked it. I had great teammates that were understanding, which I think I'm not able to do both soccer and basketball without understanding teammates and understanding coaches. So that was in the winter, and then in the fall, in the spring, I went on to play softball, which I also grew up playing.
How important do you think it is for younger athletes these days to play multiple sports?
I think it's very important. Although you don't see it very much now, you see a lot of sports specific. I growing up, I think it was very important for me to play multiple sports, and I liked being in multiple sports. I didn't really ever get sick of one sport because by the time one sport was over, I was on to the next one. And then by that time that sport was over, it was like I was hungry to go back to the sport that I had just previously participated in. Um, Not to mention, I think there's a lot of just different movements you get in different sports. Um, you see, like sometimes you see the game differently. For example, like a ball hit in softball, like just the angle to take to get to the ball. Um, in basketball, threading the needle pass would kind of help in soccer, finding um, that through ball to my teammate up front. So I just think like when you play multiple sports, you just see the perspective of each game is different, and you're able to correlate that or like cross over and use that in other sports. So although I mean most of our dual sports now are like track and cross, there's not too many dual sports. I hope hopefully at some point kids will grow up playing multiple sports and um, adults allowing it, right? Because I think a lot of times in youth sports, there's so much emphasis placed on like if you don't come to practice, you don't get to play, and so it kind of limits how many sports the kids can do. Like my nephew right now, he's in baseball, basketball, soccer. and now flag football. So he's in four, and he's busy every single day of the week. Um, and his parents make huge sacrifices, right? Because that's different practices every day, sometimes two practices a day, and then on the weekends, just trying to juggle the game schedules and any practices he had on the weekends. So I just think it's very important for kids to hopefully get back to playing multiple sports as kids, and I think it creates better athletes in the person.
After high school, your college journey takes you down the road to Chapman. What went into that decision?
So there was a lot actually, and to be honest, Chapman was almost like a last minute decision. So going into my senior year of high school, um, halfway through maybe like December, I had torn one of my right ACL. And then a couple weeks later, I had torn the left ACL. So I finished um, my basketball and soccer career with two torn ACLs in high school. Um, I had surgery over spring break, kind of was slotted to go to San Diego State and redshirt my first year there. Um, but in in the spring of that year, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and so she really didn't have a lot longer to live. Um, and then current at the time, my middle brother was going to San Diego State, and he was commuting back and forth every single day. So like just seeing him commute back and forth every single day, um, I knew like I couldn't do that. I couldn't drive in 2 hours of traffic one day, one way, and then be exhausted trying to go back and sit in class. And so um, Chapman was always on the table and an option. And it ended up being my destination because it was closer to home um, and closer to family. Um, and so I ended up at Chapman um, fall semester. My mom ends up passing away. I'm going through the rehab of both ACLs, trying to get back for season, right? I ended up taking some time off from basketball. And then I think, shoot, that was so long ago. Maybe this December of that year is when I took the court again. Um, I guess looking back on it, like the whole situation, I think I would have waited longer to get back just because um, going back on the court, I had to wear two ACL braces, and that's not really like comfortable to maneuver in. Um, and technology nowadays is a lot better. So back then, like the inside hinges of would get caught, and I just like completely wipe out just running straight up and down. Um, Janet, like maybe a month and a half later, after starting to get back on the court, I end up re-tearing my right ACL as a freshman at Chapman, and so um, the hurdles you have to go through to rehab all over again is tough, right? Like, I think nowadays the rehab is a lot easier. I shouldn't say easier, but shorter than back then. So I had surgery again. Everything was completely torn, medial lateral meniscus and full rupture of the ACL. Um, I didn't want to wear the brace. So that was one of my big stipulations, like moving forward, is I didn't want to wear the brace anymore. Um, I didn't necessarily have doubts of if I wanted to play again because I knew I did. It was just a matter of when. And so the doctor was like, well, if you don't want to wear a brace, you have to sit out like 12 complete months. And so for any kid like that is playing at that level, like to tell them they can't play for 12 months is really tough. Um, so actually, I still stay with the team, and then in the off season, I started coaching like just this youth team, kind of a rec team on the side. They were very understanding because like they would play year round, but obviously when it came back to basketball season, I would not. I would be there when I can. But at Chapman, we traveled on the weekends a lot, and so it wasn't always I wasn't always there. Um, So sophomore year I didn't play, and then I played for 3 more years after that, and 1 year into grad school there. So um, despite the trials I went through, I wouldn't change what I went through. I think um, they definitely helped me to be the person I am today. So
The journey and the trials and tribulations that you went through, knowing how kids take things today. What's your message to somebody that's going through a situation that's similar to what you went through?
you know, as a senior in high school, um, I think I had the moment of it wasn't believable, right? Like you're in high school and you kind of like it's not real. Like you can come home and she'll be there. Um, and so and because of everything else that was going on with sorry,
Nothing to apologize for, ever. I lost my mom as a freshman in high school. And so your story resonates with me. And while we all lead different paths in life, there's always a story to tell. And there's always a way that this can help impact younger generations. And regardless of the fact that we both lost our mothers to cancer 10 years, not even 10 years apart, it's still something that people can see is, yeah, it sucks. Every day sucks. But there are positives to take from that. So back to Lauren, please, back to Lauren.
I think in the moment it was difficult because my focus was just on rehabbing, right? Like getting back, rehabbing uh, to something that I've done so long, right? Like as a kid, I've played sports. Um, so I think the focus was to get back on the court, to get back in action. Um, and I think it helped take my mind off of the other aspect of what was going on. Um, I think now um, it's hard for kids to rehab just because you have to be disciplined to do it over and over and over. And sometimes the progress, you don't see the progress, like it's baby steps, right? And so sometimes it becomes tedious. Sometimes you're like, I feel good, I want to move on. And the doctor's like, no, you're not ready to move on yet. So I think setting small goals um, along the way, and then I think getting back into routine is key, and not getting into a routine where you forget, but you use the obstacles to make you a stronger person.
You held the record for 3-pointers made. What was your mentality like on the court during both practices and games?
I think in college it changed from in high school. Um, I saw the game differently in college. Um, the talent level was obviously different in college. Um, I'll say I was never a huge fan of practice. I wasn't like practice is the best part of my day. Because obviously at kids, when you're a kid, you just want to play games. Did I see the importance of practice? I did, like especially after I sat out a year, like a year, 12 months of practicing and not playing. Um, you learn to embrace practice. Um, Over that period of time, I would go to the gym at like 12, 1 o'clock at night and just get up shots, um, play games. Some of the guys from the men's team would go with us, and then just shooting games with them, challenging them, learning from them because males move at a different pace and a different way than females. And so I think that helped part of my game. Going into games, those are some of the most memorable games that I was a part of. Um, I think the game mentality was we always had a chance. And sometimes we would be outsized. Sometimes like we were the underdog because at that time Chapman was independent and not in a league, and so every game mattered. It wasn't like we could win our league and make the tournament, right? But we made the tournament every year. Um, and some of those games, like we played in cities I've never heard of. Um, but I think just by the time I was a senior, I was, I don't know, I was hungry for more because I felt like my knowledge of the game continued to grow in high school. And I think just learning different things through like watching film or studying or um, different drills that practice that we went through and how it would help us for the game. Um, I think practices were hard, but it made games easier. And I think that's the one thing that I try to carry over as a coach now is just if practices um, if practices are truly going to prepare our kids for the games, then they should be harder than the game. So the game should be easier to them. They shouldn't be shocked. It shouldn't be like a test, the game. Like you get to the test and you're like um, anxious. Like it should be easier in a game situation.
I'm a weird one, and when I would coach, I would tell my kids, I'd say, the practices are when you're studying. This should be the hardest part because you're taking in all of the information. The test is where you show me what you've learned in practice. But that's just me.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is practice is a time to make mistakes. Where as a game in a game, your mistake could be costly, right? The same thing. I try to correlate a lot of stuff um, from basketball to life because at the end of the day, a lot of these athletes are not going to be professional athletes, and I do truly believe that the life lessons you learn through sports help you become a better employee, boss, etc. in the future for your future life.
You began coaching at Cerritos in 2009 as an assistant. What still stands out to you about that first year as a coach?
Um, well, I was helping out my former high school coach. Uh, it was an interesting situation just because she ended up going out on medical leave for a little bit. Um, and I was kind of just like thrown into the fire. Like you're just trying to learn from a former coach and how the day-to-day operations work of a coach, right? Because you've been a player your whole life. um, at that point, the most experience I had was coaching fourth grade kids, which is completely different from ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade teenagers, right? Um, I can honestly say I learned a lot that season. We lost over 10 games by less than 5 points. There was one game I can remember clearly. We ended up losing by two and we missed 20 something free throws that game. It was a young team. Um, but as a coach, as a young person stepping into that role, I kind of was like, this has got to be my fault. Like, why are we losing? But you also don't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? I was what 21, 22 at at that point, and so just trying to figure things out. But I think the best part of that whole situation was just the support from like the ADs and the other staff there. knowing like you're stepping into this weird situation and you're trying to do the best you can. Um, and I would say the parents were, for the most part, understanding, right? Like everybody wants to win. It's just a weird situation, but we're going to do the best we can. I just learned a lot that year as far as making adjustments continuously as a coach, trying to be better every single day, whether your team wins or loses, right? Because at the end of the day, there's always something we can improve on. So I think just that year taught me a lot of reflection after every single practice, after every single game. Um, and then from then on, I just continued to find new drills, new ideas, new concepts, and maybe just different drills to teach the same skill level to the kids. So that was definitely an eye-opening year. Just because 22, 23 is pretty young to step into a head coaching role with just all the intangibles, right? Because we all know coaching is not just about the X's and O's; it's about the paperwork, the communication to the parents, the fundraising, and so it was I was shell shocked to say the least.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you're interested in advertising with South Bay Sports Radio, leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Enjoy the rest of this episode. When did you develop the sense of style that you have on the sideline? Because I don't think I see many coaches wearing full business suits and heels.
Um, so that actually started. Well, the business suit part didn't really start till I got to North, but when I was at Cerritos, like I knew my coach would always like dress professional. Like I don't know, like nowadays after COVID, like I think I heard this on during March Madness the other weekend, like what happened to the coaches wearing suits and ties? Because a lot of them are wearing like just sweatsuits now. But my high school coach would dress up at least business casual, right, for our games. Um, and then carrying that on, like my college coach would dress up like skirts, um, suits, different colors. And so I think I just learned from those two. Like, I guess this is I always thought that's how it was because that's who I played for, right? And so I didn't necessarily look at the other coaches that we played against because I mean, I don't know many high school kids or college kids that are looking at what the other coach is wearing after the game and the handshake. Um, but yeah, I think just treating the game with profession, right? Like, um, I think that's just important to, yeah, dress professionally when you coach. It's not, I mean, I'll be the first to say, like, after the game, I am quick to change out of that and back into my comfy clothes. But for all the games, at least the league games and the playoff games, I think it's important to dress professional.
You take over at North in 2012. What were some of your short term goals when you first took that job?
Um, I wanted to take the program from where it was and just up it a notch. So they had been to the playoffs every single year. So that wasn't really like a goal was to make the playoffs. Obviously, as a new coach coming in, that has to be on your goals list because you want to continue the tradition that was set before you. So I didn't want to like take a step back by not making the playoffs. So I didn't want to take that for granted. Um, but I think it was my initial goal was setting the foundation um, for hopefully a program that can be successful for the years to come. I think one thing that I tried to pride myself on is not having a rebuilding year. Um, I think when you talk about building a program from top to bottom, um, in my eyes, you shouldn't need a rebuilding year if you're building the program properly from top to bottom. Um, the talent level should constantly be there. JV should be an improvement, or you should improve from JV to varsity. And every single kid in the program should get better from beginning to end, whether they play 4 years, whether they play 3 years, whether they play 2 years, or whether they only play a year. I think every single player should get better, not just skill wise, but as a person. So personality. I think for me as a coach, one of the most exciting things I see with my players, my current players, former players, is just their character and personality blossom from freshman year to senior year, and then after high school. It's just cool to see like how they mature and how they evolve as a person over time. Um, so yeah, getting back to the goals, obviously building the program up, but I also didn't know what to expect either. Like I didn't realize all the other extra stuff besides coaching there is, and sometimes um, we actually most coaches get into coaching for to coach, right? We don't get into coaching to do the paperwork or um, to fundraise. Really, like that's not our passion. Our passion is to coach, and so um, I think I did a pretty good job of managing. The parent involvement in the program definitely helps as a coach, just so it takes just a little extra pressure off of the outside stuff besides coaching. And so um, making the playoffs, going deep, like as a player, the furthest I went was the semifinals. So obviously, um, making a deep run in the playoffs are always the goals. But as a coach, I always ask the kids, like, what are your goals? Like, I'm here to coach, but I want to coach to what they want, because I think it's important for kids to take ownership of their actions and their goals, and I'm here to help you reach your goal. Um, it's a team effort, so I just feel like sometimes as a coach, you may want something, but the kids you have may not want that. And so every year I'm constantly asking the kids like what their goals are, what they want as an individual and then as a team. Because I just think um, there's more buy-in. They're more dedicated because they're going to take ownership of what they want.
I asked you to name a memorable game, and you mentioned the 2015 CIF Southern Section Finals. And that's within your first 4 years at North. That team went 29-3. But what was it about that year, that run, and that title that still holds a place in your heart today?
Um, that year. So that year, we had 6 sophomores on varsity for the first time. So fairly young team, right? I think we had maybe 3 seniors. We didn't have a whole lot of um, upperclassmen with some experience. So I think going into the year, it was one of those years that it was like, oh, we're young, we're inexperienced, not sure how far this is gonna go. Um, and and I don't know if we got caught up in our record so much throughout the year as just that group just really took every single game for that game. Like we weren't looking back, we weren't looking forward, we were looking and focused on that game. Um, that run is so memorable because number one of the 6 sophomores that we had, along with um, the sprinkle of upperclassmen. Um, number two, just the CIF finals game. So we were up to um, shooting one more free throw. We missed the free throw. The team rebounds and dribbles all the way down the court and scores a layup to tie the game to send it into overtime. So as you can imagine, like you get to the finals, you need one free throw to go up 3, but you're up 2 already. We miss. We're telling them no fouls. Um, the team dribbles down for a layup, and when you have a young team, it's hard to get them to bounce back and push forward. But I think that we were able, like, I think partly from the coaching staff, we're like, it's okay, like we're still going into overtime. We didn't lose the game. Um, and just the couple seniors that we had like hit big shots. Like they weren't afraid. They had the confidence. So just like that dramatic moment right there, we go on to win it. Um, Seeing the crowd that we had at APU was amazing. And then just that, I kind of feel like I could go back to that moment because I don't know about other coaches, but on your first one, I feel like I could have enjoyed the moment more, but maybe I was too young and naive and didn't really know, like you're after the game and you're trying to celebrate on the court, but um they're usually pushing you like hurry up, sit down, like don't celebrate too much. Um so it was just, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would do differently if I had to go back as far as like after and celebrating like that. But I wouldn't change the moment that happened. And it was meaningful because it was the first one in school history. It was also incredible because I think that year 3 out of the 4 Torrance girls basketball teams won. Um, so it's just so memorable. And then um, that group of kids, like we constantly stay in touch, like even to this day, checking in on everybody, seeing how they're doing. And so, um, I mean, they had the first one in school history, so it's just a very special moment that year.
This year's team makes it back to the finals. You fell to Oak Park in the championship, but how did this group of girls buy into what you were trying to teach? And how did things play out over the course of the season?
Yeah, going into this year, I'm not sure any of us really knew how it was going to play out as far as the playoffs, right? With the new ranking system going to current year data. Um, I know I was excited because I've always told myself that if we could just drop to Division 2, we would have a good chance. Division 1 is just hard because we're not very big, right? And so eventually you run up against the big athletic, skilled players, and it's just hard to compete. So I knew like going into the year, if I could just get to Division 2, we could make a good run. Um, I think most people thought we were going to be in a rebuilding year. We lose 4 seniors, 3 of which played varsity for 4 years, and 4 of our top 6, I think 7, that we graduated. So um, the experience maybe wasn't there, um, but I think just constantly getting better each day. They work absolutely hard. Like my kids are some of the most hardworking kids. Um, we get so much out of them. Sometimes, actually, many times people are asking me like, how you get so much out of your kids? How do you do it? Um, but I think if people just know and could see what we do at practice every day and how much work they put in, um, I can't say I'm shocked to see the success that um, comes out when they put in such hard work, like just strengthening their bodies to take the physical beating sometimes that we do against the bigger teams, and then um, believing in the system, believing that what we're game planning for is going to work. And I think, I don't know when, I can't say when, maybe it clicked for them, but like our style of play is like in your face the whole game, right? Like we're gonna press you, we're gonna wear you down physically and hopefully mentally. Where at the end of the game you're gonna make mental mistakes and physical mistakes, and that's when we're gonna be in the best shape and capitalize on those mistakes. Um, and I think sometimes it's hard because it doesn't always work in the first quarter or the first half. The Palos Verde semifinal game is a prime example. I mean, we were down 10, 12 in the first quarter. Um, but I think I mean, I wasn't shaking at all. I wasn't worried at all because I knew that we were in very, very good shape, and that we could hit shots when we're tired. I think a big key to our success is making shots and making free throws, getting to the line, and scoring at all three levels. We had an undersized big that was able to find the right pockets in the zone defense to get us some points inside. Um, and then in a man, she was able to shoot the shot or take the ball off the dribble, right? So I think having a player that can be a threat inside and outside definitely helps. A point guard who's speedy, and then a cast of role players who are very good at doing what they're supposed to do and doing their job. Um, the greatest thing I feel like I'm so fortunate because we don't have the type of player that will go and get us 20 points a game. And everybody is like, give the ball to player A and go get us a bucket. Um, this year, I felt like we had three different players that could be our leading scorer at any time. So if you want to take away one, we have two others that we can use, which I think helped. Um, and then, like I said, just the role players, like them them being okay with what their role was and them learning how to be the best they can be in their role, and being okay with that because not every program has buy-in from kids who maybe want to be in a different position or feel that they should be in a different position, but a coach is asking them to do this or play this role for them. And so um, I think this year was just it was a it was a reflection of every single kid embracing their role and embracing being pushed to be better and the best they could be in that role, is what got us to the finals. I can't say if you told me at the beginning of the year this would be the team to make it back to the finals, but I always believe that getting there is skill, hard work, and then you do need some luck. I mean, it's crazy, like, we talk about it. A lot of the kids from that 2015 team came back, this year, and it was just so exciting, like, it took 10 years to get it back, right? I think for me as a coach, the run we made this year, I enjoyed more of the moments, um, because now, like, obviously I'm more mature and older, and I learned to appreciate the fact that we got back there and it took 10 years to get back. So you have to appreciate those moments because not everybody gets there.
I asked you to name some of your mentors, and you gave me a few, including locally renowned basketball coach Richard Mason, your coach at Chapman, Carol Zhu,
Yeah.
and your parents. What are some of the things you learned from them that you still utilize today?
Um, yeah, okay, so I'll start with Mason. When I first took over at North, it was actually my parents who kind of advised me like it would be smart to get like a veteran coach to help me at least start, and get me off the ground type of thing. And so my dad worked in LA. Both of my parents worked in LAUSD, so obviously they knew Mason, and worked with him a lot. So we sat down, we talked. Um, I just not that I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable being the head coach, but it was kind of like I felt like I had a lot to learn, and I after talking to him, it felt like he was going to be the guy to help me at least get my feet wet, get off the ground, get the foundation to the program built, and kind of bounce ideas off of. I've learned so much from him. Um, Back in the day, he would teach me how to break down film by hand. That was before Huddle would help us break it down. But there's still things like he had acronyms for, um, and then counted it and then showed the kids. So he taught me that stuff. He also taught me. the mental side of basketball and the mental toughness side of sports and basketball. And so I think that plays a big role in helping kids grind and get through the dog days of the season. Because there's always those, like usually in the middle of the season, where it's just tough to, it's a long season. And so mentally helping the kids and talking about how to be mentally tough, giving them examples. Um, so he brought that aspect. He taught me how to plan better for practices. Things like writing down a practice plan and not just having it in your head and then limiting the number of minutes or writing down how much time you want to work on. He also taught me that you're not going to make it perfect in one day. So if it's something that needs work, maybe 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day. Um, he also taught me the importance of starting practice with some fundamentals. Nobody is ever too good for fundamentals. Um, Moving on to my college coach, um, she just taught me a lot about the game, um, how to communicate and build relationships with different players on the team. And then the other aspect of being a coach is not just coaching, but being there and teaching the kids about life. And so that's one aspect that I took away from her. Believe it or not, my sophomore year at Chapman, we had 7 kids, and so she also taught me like how to bring in other people to make the current players better. And so, like this year during our run, um, we had 5 boys who were practice players for us that I think definitely helped us um, in our run that we made this year. And so that's one thing I took away from her. And then just caring about the kids um, as people is another thing that she taught me, is just the importance of building those relationships and continuing to check in on the kids even after they graduate is important. And then my parents, Southern section is quite different than LA City section in some ways. And so seeing the impact that they made in the city section from uh, coaching at various schools, but also coaching various sports. And then not just the impact on the school, but the people. So I think one of the moments that I realized I wanted to impact as many lives as I could um, happened to be at my mom's funeral. It was a 5 hour long funeral. And mainly because of the number of former students, former players that showed up to pay their respects that we didn't even know. Um, so just seeing the impact that they made is something that I like to do.
We are going to transition into rapid fire. No tears, happy tears. Your favorite basketball players of all time?
Chris Paul.
One NBA franchise has to go.
Currently, I'd say Washington Wizards.
Deal. Your favorite basketball movie?
Love and basketball.
A movie is being made about your life. Who plays Lauren?
Oh, who plays Lauren? I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with my former player Bailey Enomoto.
Sweet, I'll buy 4 tickets. Your go-to South Bay eatery and your favorite dish there?
Okay. My go-to South Bay eatery, because I'm usually always on the go with limited time, is gonna have to be Tom's Tacos. And I like their chicken tacos with cheese and some French fries.
I can dig Tom's. That's a staple. Thank you, Lauren, very much for your time. I appreciate every bit of this episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow along and share these episodes with your family and friends. Until the next episode, South Bay Sports Guy signing off. Have a great day.
Means that do it. Burger.